If you have major health complications, then you have to not only work harder to do the things necessary to survive during the day, but you also have to account for the major health complication. And obviously, because you have a major health complication, it's also going to be more difficult for you to address it. This is a concept that I looked into a little while ago, and I talked to a few people who were knowledgeable about human psychology and about sociology, and I've come to a certain conclusion. There is a paradox surrounding poor health, and it is tied directly to our capitalist system. What the heck am I talking about, right? Well, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people in this country who are concerned about healthcare, and it stands to reason that they would be alarmed about this. Healthcare isn't really a right in the United States of America, and so people worry about what I've come to call the paradox of poor health. And it's what I said in the intro, but let me go ahead and elaborate. Now, a lot of times, and you can tell just by the way things pan out in the social sphere, we expect people with poor health to do more than the average person to care for themselves. And when you think about it, it stands to reason because you have to do that, and it should be incumbent upon you to address your health, especially if it is urgent or meaningful. But there is a catch to this. You see, this exists as a paradox in this country because of the way we approach healthcare. You see, a long time ago, well before I was born, or many of the people I know were born, we decided that healthcare was a commodity and that the nature of healthcare should be profit making. This created a problem, an obvious problem, that the healthcare industry, slowly over time, since at least the 1950s, have taken to fighting our system or eroding our system in order to squeeze out more profits. I mean, you only have to look to the modern opioid crisis to see just how much the healthcare system is willing to help bridge the gap for people if they don't have a certain amount of money. Now, the only reason why this really exists as a paradox is because of the inherent contradictions to being in poor health in a capitalist system. Like I said, it's ironic in a sense that the better off you are, the less hard you have to work. And it also is a little confusing that the way we've tried to address it has been so lacking. But there is hope, and it's something that I definitely believe in and would advocate for. You see, I said the paradox of poor health is reflective of a capitalist system, but the countries that have universal health care, they don't deal with this paradox. At least it's not as pronounced. Because here's the other thing about the paradox is that it's inevitable. As you grow older, most human beings will deteriorate. They will lose cognitive function, they'll lose physical capability. Your body is going to slowly fade. And it's because death is inevitable. And I know that's something people don't like talking about, but it's the result of a life lived, any life lived. And nobody stays young and vibrant and healthy forever. A lot of people work their hardest to make sure that they do have good health throughout their lives, but Father Time is undefeated, and it is ultimately a losing battle. Even doctors and nurses know this, and despite that, they work hard to do their job. But the point I'm trying to make is that poor health is something that will befall you. It will. be something that you cross in your life. And the paradox in that system is going to leave a lot of people who are vulnerable with nothing. And if you have to work harder when you're sick to function, it's also going to exponentially compound if you're destitute as well. And so to go back to universal health care, it's important to remember other countries have realized that. And so they volunteered, their governments at least, have volunteered to help bridge the gap. And that's really what the focus of this episode is. Because it's something I just want to say, a concept I want to express, is that poor health doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to hurt you. It doesn't have to hurt the people you care about. And it doesn't have to be something that is difficult to overcome. If there's an entity or an institution that can help bridge the gap and help people find opportunities, then we should employ this kind of system. And we should give it all the effort and all the resources and funding it needs. I mean, poor health isn't necessarily a precursor to you being escorted from polite society. I mean, to use an example, though, whether it's a good example or not is up to you, it's also really nice to remember that one of our most esteemed presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, suffered from polio late in his life and was confined to a wheelchair. But he hid it from public view because of the perception of poor health. But it's worth noting that despite his quote unquote poor health, he ran this country like a boss through the Great Depression and much of World War II. So obviously, having a disability or having poor health is not an immediate disqualifier from polite society. But nowadays, a lot of people treat it like it is, and it leads to the paradox. You see, it's only a paradox because you have to do more with less. And for some reason, there's a corner of our popular culture that doesn't want people doing that, which confuses me to no end. But I'm going to wrap it up by saying this. Alls I know about poor health is that 9 times out of 10, it's not anybody's fault. It's not an aim that somebody would make. Nobody wishes to have type 2 diabetes or cancer or an or some obscure illness that's deteriorating them. Nobody wants these things. It happens. And we should have a system that helps vulnerable people because as I pointed out, we will all be there in some capacity or have been there. And to have a system that respects and works for vulnerable people is a good way to get rid of a hurtful, disdainful kind of paradox that leads people to ruin. And trust me, with the way our current administration in the White House and in the government is operating, they're liable to try to take that away from you and to tell you you don't deserve it. And I'm here to tell you, and I know other people will tell you the same, that they are lying. It is untrue. You do deserve it. And that paradox should be eradicated from American life with the simple notion of protecting their citizens the way a government should and offering them health care for little or no money. Thank you very much for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. I always love starting conversations. And remember, no matter how dimly the light of hope flickers, it will always be the brightest light at the end of the tunnel. Take care of yourself.